Well, howdy again. First and foremost, I say I'm going to warn you, this is going to probably be some topic that I'm going to do a bit of a rant or a bit of a venting. So this is something that you may not want your children to watch. I may cuss. I don't know what I'll do. I'll do whatever I do when it happens. It's just like if I sit down to write poems or a story or something, or whenever I create artwork, I don't know really usually what I'm going to create. It just comes out. So you've been warned. So let's get our lips ready for the vent. I love this Bliss Tech, the fruit smoothies. Good stuff. Anyway, let's see. My vent and rant today is something I've been going through for years, but it's resurfaced again lately. Has been dysfunctional family members. Dysfunctional family dynamics. And let me first and foremost say that my husband and I are far from perfect. Nobody is. We've tried our hardest. But a large part of the reason, not only because of health reasons and because of the economy, but part of the reason we chose to move so far away was because of dysfunctional family dynamics that were going on and that were harming us psychologically. I always feel, and my husband feels, like we are the forgotten family members. Sadly. We feel like a large group of our family members like to all get together and talk about us, but they don't talk to us. And my husband and I are the type that if I have a problem with you, I'm going to talk to you directly. I'm not going to go all around, and do like the donut effect where we're in the hole and everybody else is, talk to me. And when we've tried to approach family members and go, hey, what's going on? I don't understand what's going on. Why are you being this way? They won't say anything. That's gone on for years. That's gone on with my family, my side of the family, and I am not including my children, and I am not including my grandchildren. This has gone on my side of the family for as long as I can remember, and I don't feel like that I even really exist with the extended family members. I don't even think they know I exist. Sadly, my parents and my brother live in another town about 2 hours away from where I lived. Do you know that occasionally we would meet somebody from Rollins that knew either my brother or my dad, and they would be shocked that we were related? I even had one gentleman say, are you sure? He's never mentioned having a daughter. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. That's very hurtful and very painful. Sadly, I never measured up to whatever my mother thought I should be. From a tiny child on. I wasn't thin enough. I wasn't smart enough. I just basically, in her eyes, did nothing right. My brother did no wrong. And it's, and that's just the way it was. And like I said, when you try to start talking to somebody, I really want my extended family members to know what's happened to me. I mean, doesn't anybody ever wonder whatever happened to me? They call me Terry Ann. Does anybody ever wonder what happened to Terry Ann? I guess not, because nobody asked. And you get tired of it because you don't know what your parents and your brother have told I've heard from like an ex-daughter or an ex-sister-in-law and stuff that they love to just cut me to pieces, and my husband and stuff whenever we would come down there. But I would really love if anybody would ever come to me and go, what happened? You used to be the one who did everything for your parents and was there for your parents. And I mean, because I did. I would go down there, and if they were sick, I would help do what I could. And, they didn't come up for holidays ever. We would go down and stuff. And I mean, I really tried my hardest until I realized that it made no difference whatever I did ever. I was never going to be good enough, And my husband feels that way. It's like his sisters. He's got 3 sisters, could do no wrong, and he can do no right. And, it's very damaging. And then you have to take a step back and realize, why is it this way? Well, first of all, my family doesn't want anybody to know about the abuse. And it was abuse. And they can say it wasn't abuse, but it was. My husband can even verify that he's heard stories that my mother proudly tells about, training me to clothesline and leaving me out there for hours. And she still thinks that's the greatest, hilarious story ever. He's witnessed that many times. Many of the things they did were abusive, especially with my mother. And some other stuff that went on that I'm not ready to talk about, and I just can't talk about, that happened to me. And I guess you probably can guess, but I can't go there. But, sadly anybody that knew about it is passed on. But the reason that they don't want you to say anything about the abuse is it would tarnish their image. They don't want anybody to know. So they can silence you, and they can make it seem like you are just, off your rocker, and band a bunch of people in with them. Then they think they can keep you quiet. And it's like, and that makes you feel like, oh, well, maybe you did something wrong. It's like, I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And especially when you're a child, I did nothing wrong to deserve the beatings, the verbal and emotional abuse, the molestation. I was raped as a teenager. That's how I lost my virginity. One of the most harmful things was how my parents handled it. Obviously something's wrong when your daughter comes home and And so I told them thinking that they would help me, right? No. I was 16. I had a crush on this boy. I thought he was just, the most wonderful thing ever. I'm not going to go into specific graphic details, but he had some of his buddies do a lookout, and he raped me. It was extremely brutal, extremely painful. Like I said, I was a virgin. So when I told my parents that night, my father looked at me and called me a whore and walked off in disgust. My mother's only concern was not that if I was injured or anything, but that then I would need to prove to her when I started my period to make sure I wasn't pregnant. There was no counseling. There was no calling the police or anything. Because of course I knew who did it. And, I still had to go to school with that that boy and his friends, which, you know. There was no reason to call me a whore. I wasn't promiscuous. Obviously, I wasn't sleeping around. You know, and it was very damaging to not have any support of your family and just have them be disgusted in you that this happened to you. You know, that he was taken out in the middle of nowhere and brutalized in the cab of a truck while I couldn't escape, while his friends are, you know, are being a lookout and even watching and stuff, and just being terrified and the pain and stuff. And I mean, well, that's how they handled that. And, you know, there's not been any loving ever really from my mother. And, just get to a point where you're old enough, you're like, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck this shit. You know, yeah, and now this won't be monetized, of course. But fuck this shit, because I didn't do anything wrong and I didn't deserve this treatment. And I'm sorry I didn't meet up to whatever expectations you had of me as a child. That, you know, I mean, it wouldn't make any difference when I got straight A's in college or anything, or, you know, I mean, I was told, and this is sadly why I backed off of the artwork for so long, is I was told basically that I should pursue that because that was the only thing I probably could do. They made me feel like I was mentally retarded. You know, and I have a high IQ. You know, I mean, you know, yes, I have Asperger's. Yes, I have ADHD. But, you know, I excel in a lot of areas. And it's like, you know. Oh, I'm going to stop this and finish it.